Hello students, I know that we started conversing with Python on Module 1. On Module 2, we're going to start working with some of the functions that Python has inherently inside of the program. Print is normally the first function that most people begins with. You give the print function an expression to print out for the user to read. This is another way to see our solution in the shell and to make sure that when we executed our code, that our solution came valid. We can use it to allow our program to print messages to the user. The messages are displayed by the Python shell part of idle. So let's go practice. Let's open idle. There we go. I'm going to open idle bigger so you can see better. If we say print, make sure you put it on lowercase, 2 plus 2. It will display 4. If we add the print function as shown and run the program again, you'll be asked again if you want to save the program before you run it. We get the value 4 printed out. If we want to print out more messages, we can just add more calls to the print function. For example, print, single quotes, the answer is. As you can see, whatever text I want to appear printed out will be the text that is in quotes. And then I can say print 2 plus 2. You can execute the code one line at a time or wait and execute both lines. Let me show you. I'm going to cut or copy and paste both parts of the code here. If you want to print out several things on one line, we can give the print function a list of arguments. For example, we can get the first one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag, right-click on copy, and then erase that parentheses, put a comma, and then press 2 plus 2 and put the parentheses. If I press enter now, you can see that says the answer is 4 and it shows on one line. Each item in the list is separated by a comma character. This will print out just one line of text. The values of the arguments are printed out one after another. Note that the print function automatically inserts a space between each of the items it prints. Now what about if we make an error when we're typing? For example, we print the answer is. You could copy also if you would want to. This time, I'm going to add a different close. As you can see, it's not the same as the round caps. And now, you get a syntax error. Sometimes you can make an error like this and spend 30-40 minutes or an hour trying to figure it out where you did wrong, when it's just something as an invalid syntax error. That means you just typed the wrong thing. The code looks correct at first glance, but it contains a serious error. The closing parentheses should be at the end of the top line. But instead of a parenthesis, we have replaced it with a closing brace. So when I try to run the program, I get an error. The editor has helpfully highlighted the incorrect closing brace. The idle editor actually checks the syntax of your program as you type it, to make sure that you at least have an alert or warning. Some people like to put or introduce a warning sound to indicate that I've done something silly. Personally, I'd rather not, as I learn a lot by making mistakes, but sometimes I do make a lot of mistakes when I do code. As you type through your programs, you'll notice that the idle editor tries to help you to get them right. When you type a closing parentheses, you'll notice that the entire sequence of characters surrounded by the parentheses is highlighted. Now remember we talked about division previously? Let's see the different types of division. That is something that we forgot to mention in Module 1. If we divide 10 by 5, we get 2.0. 2.0 is what is known as a float. A float is any number that has a decimal point. That is one type of division. However, look what happens when we do the floor division. Why does the number doesn't show the same? This number is called an integer. Even though it's still 2, as you can see, the decimal is no longer shown, and Python has rounded to the nearest number. Let's look at a number that's not so pretty, something like 18 divided by 5, for example. We get 3.6. Let's see what happens when we do floor division. As you can see, Python rounded to 3, which was the closest number. This you have to be careful about, as the rounding can sometimes reduce or take decimals away in calculations that might be important. So make sure that you always use the right type of division. We also have an expression that is called modulus. Modulus is normally not used unless you're dealing with advanced, but we want to make sure that you know what modulus does. For example, in order for us to do modulus, even though you can write down just an example and see how it works, what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize two variables. We'll study variables in a while, but just to let you know how to do it. We're going to do a equals 8 and b equals 2. Now what just happened was I input a equals 8 and b equals 2, and Python stored the values in sort of like a bucket. There's a bucket with the number or name A and another bucket with the name or letter B that store those values. Now remember, modulus will display the remainder after dividing the volume. So if we have A modulus B print A modulus B. As you can see, it will give us 0. Because if we divide A divided by 2 equals 4, and there's no remainder left over. The remainder left over will be 0. So now you know what modulus does. Modulus will give you the remainder. How about exponents? We have 2. We do exponents in Python by using the asterisk twice. If we have 2 to the 4th and we press enter, Python gives us 16 and it performs the calculation for us. The operators for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division act as you will expect. Care must be taken, however, to group expressions where more than one operator is used to clarify the expression. We talked about pendas before. You know that if you have parentheses, you will perform that operation first. The modulus operator will divide the first given number by the second given number, in this case, A divided by B, or A divided by 2, and return the remainder of the operation. This is useful to determine if a number has an odd or even value. The floor division operator, which is just like the normal division but truncates the result at the decimal point, will remove any floating point value. For example, 16 divided by 4 will give us 4. That's the floor division. As you can see, it truncated the decimal point. However, if we just do normal division, we will get a floating point or decimal point number, like 4.0. The exponent operator returns the result of the first operand raised to the power of the second. We have introduced variables when we were trying to do the operation for modulus. I could have just well print out 8 modulus 2 instead of print A divided by B, or modulus B. But I wanted to make sure that you understood that you can do it different ways.